Good evening and welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, February 25. If you're watching live on Monday, February 25, we encourage you to call in if you have comments or questions. Our call-in number is 769-1677. As always, you can watch us live on Cablevision, Optimum or Verizon Cable TV, and at pctv76.org. And within a few days, you can pick up an on-demand webcast of this meeting or any past meeting, again, at pctv76.org. So I have a bunch of announcements to make, but let's hold that because there are a bunch of folks here interested in two significant subjects. We have two public hearings on our agenda tonight. The first is a public hearing regarding introductory local law number 1 of 2019, prohibition of retail sale of marijuana. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, as you can see, Joe Stargiotti and David Vinjamuri were unable to be here tonight. Welcome to the public hearing. Just by way of introduction, many of you are probably aware of this. New York State has proposed in its current budget deliberations the idea of legalizing marijuana. As of the moment, the state proposal suggests that communities would not have the option independently to opt out from retail sale of marijuana, that would be restricted to counties or cities over 100,000 people in population. That has not yet been passed, and it appears possible, maybe likely, that the policy discussions will extend beyond the budget process and continue through the legislative session that goes on through the spring. So in the meantime, let me report the legislative intent and purpose. Again, reading from the draft new local law. Section 1, legislative intent and purpose. The Village Board recognizes that legalization of recreational marijuana is a subject of current discussion by the New York State government. The Village Board has found that Pleasantville residents are greatly concerned about the retail sale of marijuana in the village if it should become legal in New York. Further, the board finds that the small scale of the village commercial district makes it impossible to locate marijuana retail stores away from children's walking routes and child-focused facilities. Accordingly, it is the intent of the Village Board to prohibit the retail sale, distribution, or offer of consumption of marijuana in all zoning districts. Section 2 describes definitions. Section 3 describes the actual prohibition, which says no building structure or premises within any zoning district in the Village of Pleasantville may be used for the sale, distribution, or offer for consumption of marijuana or marijuana products in a retail setting or environment for non-medical use. And there is further information as stated in the record. So just to be clear, regardless of what may happen at the state level, in the event that we should pass this, at least for the moment, our laws would outlaw the retail sale of marijuana. There is the possibility that the state would preempt that, but in an effort to get out in front of this, we propose to enact this change in our zoning code now. We sent this, as we were required to do, to the County Department of Planning because it's a change in our zoning law. They responded with the single suggestion that because it's clear that our intent is not to limit the retail sale of medical marijuana, that perhaps we should add a definition regarding that to our proposed code. So we invite to add a definition.
Right.
Which is logical, and we have done that. So I invite comment from the public in the context of the public hearing. Nicole Malgarinos is walking better.
I am.
Still not best.
Not best. It's going to be a little while.
Welcome, Nicole Malgarinos.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you taking the time out.
Can you identify your role in life?
I am.
Yes.
So I am the Pleasantville Strong Coalition Coordinator. I am also a resident of 16 now years. I have 2 children, one who is a graduate of Pleasantville High School. He is 28. And I have a child going into the high school this year. So what we'd like to do tonight, just to kind of follow up, you see all of these maps in front of you. And what I'd like to, just to give you a framework or a context, one of the things that we look at when we use maps is within the context of the public health model. So the public health model, I'm just going to briefly explain it. It requires that we take a look at the way in which environments play a role in influencing health outcomes. So this is an epidemiological model that attempts to prevent or reduce a particular illness or social problem in a population by identifying risk factors. We know that public health promotes and protects the health of people and communities where they live, where they learn, where they work, and where they play. We also know that the public health model informs how we think about proximity and density of retail alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana outlets. We know that proximity and density have a direct influence on youth perception of risk and harm, early initiation of substance abuse, and ease of access, the ability to gain access to substances for which they are not of the age to have access to. Public health models show the relevance and relationship between the distance to retail outlets in relation to community demographics, consumption, and related health and social problems. And so that is to say, for many years now, 100 years, we've been regulating alcohol, and we look closely at density and proximity. We're very careful, I know in this village for sure, because we help to do this, to train people and to make sure that alcohol is sold and there are compliance checks in spaces where youth have little access. So what we started looking at was framing this in terms of looking at retail marijuana. And it becomes abundantly apparent, and it's very difficult to see here. This is our zoning map. All right, and so what happens here is what we're looking at is we're looking at those A1 central business, A2 central business, and the peripheral business areas. Now, everybody who lives here knows that much of that is centered Wheeler, Washington. I live in the Old Village.
Can I ask you
yes.
to drag the microphone?
Oh.
You can just lift it out of
Yes,
the
okay.
out
Sorry.
of the.
You lost me.
Sorry,
It's a lot to coordinate.
especially when you're
Right.
not.
Talking, chewing gum,
Go.
and following. I got it. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. So, to reiterate, when we're thinking about retail environments, we're thinking about those A1, A2, and those peripheral business.
Which, just to be clear, are
Which-
the districts that permit retail activity.
Correct. And then what was interesting to look at, and I would have to ask the administrator, is this the interactive map? Can I move this one around?
No, that's a PDF.
Okay. All right. So what we did, and this doesn't completely show it, but I have a live link in the document on the village attachment to the agenda. So what we did is we layered those areas that you see in yellow are churches, and you can see them listed above. I also have a printed version that I believe is going around. So we have those churches. Schools are obviously marked by the red marks. Then what we did next is we looked at establishments that youth frequent, and they're not completely listed there. Again, you can open it in the interactive map, and that's those green spaces you see, those environments. Now, those environments are places like the Jacob Burns, Sundance, any number of places we have. Even I left McDonald's on there, Club Infinity, Frank and Joe's. So there's a complete list. I think there's 23 of them. And then we have Parks and Rec and civic spaces. Now, on this map, it is difficult to see, but you can take a ruler to the interactive. And I had, the customary is 1,000 feet. That's sort of what the standard is in terms of youth-centric or youth-frequented spaces for retail. And it was very, very difficult to find such a space. When you take a look at these clusters, I would encourage folks to do their own research and really, because what you're looking at here is everything else is residential. And we know what the public health model says about that we shouldn't have any of those substances located or retail sales environments in places that are close to both homes and schools. But we really need to be thinking about it in the same way as we do with alcohol and tobacco. And that's really what the map was meant to show. I wish that we had been able to load the interactive. I actually have it on my laptop. But that, if you play with it, you will be able to see how much retail density that we have and how much of that space is youth-centric spaces that are frequented by youth. And we really were thinking about, not only our 7th through 12th grade students, but youth, but also, folks with families and young children.
So, sort of a stupid question, but, well, maybe not a stupid question. I think I'm channeling people who've been asking me questions as well. You said
Yeah.
we're thinking about it along the same lines as alcohol and tobacco, but obviously if you were to put retail locations for alcohol and tobacco, they would be all over the place there, right?
They wouldn't be all over. We're actually doing a pretty good job. If you think about the spaces, we don't have a huge proximity and density. Yes, they are relative to youth spaces where youth frequent. We have consistently, and I will defer to my colleagues to talk some more about this, talked about not adding another layer. So you're looking at my layering map right now. And to add another layer takes away protective factors. And like I said, in terms of the public health model, reduces perception of risk and harm, increases access, and I think we need to be paying attention to that.
Right, so we're basically talking about not adding an additional substance, not really treating it the same as alcohol and tobacco, since those are already in place.
Well, both alcohol and tobacco regulation are informed in the same way.
Right.
I will share with you that, for 100 years we've been trying to figure out how to, remove sandwich boards from streets with Joe Camel on it. We have been very careful about providing, compliance and tips training for our beverage servers. So there is a lot of prevention still going on there. And so yes, that is definitely part of the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. So the work Nicole has done and the narrative attached to it is part of our the assessment forms that are attached to the zoning proposal, as is required for us to make a zoning change. So just to sort of recap what Nicole said, there are a bunch of communities, hold on a second, you're welcome to speak. There are a bunch of communities that have sought to identify, for example, a 1,000-foot radius around child-centered locations and said, okay, we're going to draw all those circles around child-centered locations, and the areas that fall between are the areas that would be a logical place for activities that are not appropriate for young kids. In Pleasantville, you draw those 1,000-foot circles around all of these possible locations and you have nothing left. And that is what led us to this proposal. Again, it is not clear how the state will move on the proposal they have in place. It is possible that whatever we do here tonight could be preempted by the state, but I think it's the view of the board that that is not a reason for not going forward. And then also, just to be crystal clear, what this says is you cannot have a retail store selling marijuana. If marijuana is legalized, it will become legal. That's above our pay grade. But what we're seeking to avoid here is a circumstance where kids are walking back and forth to school and to the various other places they frequent, past stores that are selling marijuana and marijuana products. So, other speakers? We just need you
You
to
got to come up to the.
enter and sign in, please, if you could give us your name and address.
Into the microphone?
Yeah.
Swami Sunkara from Washington Avenue.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much for your detailed effort to stop this. And I am against the retail place here, even though I cannot stop the state from grabbing some money for all of us. But this is small town, and I have 5 children went out of this Pleasantville school. And in spite of all that close community, kids are kids. And like she said, the area we have is very limited. On the way here, in the shopping area, we have new table tennis club came up, and a lot of kids are joining and playing around. And they don't go straight there and come back. They walk around, and it's a bad idea to bring in here. Apart from that, the soldiers and sailors next to the EMT emergency ambulance place there, and then our McDonald and other places where children, when they are summer vacation, these are all hangout places for the kids. So, and I want, as a mayor and other politicians, what is your view? How can you protect? And traditionally, Pleasantville stood up few times, I know, in my 31 years here, stood up against the state regarding the education system or whatever. So I think with all your support, we can stop that from happening around here. I think it is definitely a bad effect. And then when marijuana combines with other problems, alcohol, we have a couple of alcohol places which are open now on Sundays too. So the combination of the drugs, marijuana, even though some scientifically proven advantages of marijuana, the combination of marijuana, alcohol, and other narcotics will create much more dangerous consequences to our kids. Already, Westchester is one of the very sad stories regarding opioid poisoning and other things, even though most educated, most affluent county, one of the best in the country. In other ways, we could do better. So I request all of you to support this effort. We already have enclave. We already succumbed to our nice place. Very wooded place is sacrificed. I myself have been sick with the dust allergies over the years, and still I'm praying for snow. I'm praying for rain, because even winter time they're not stopping their construction. They want to finish,
just
which
to be
is
clear,
good for
that's
everyone.
unrelated to
So
this public hearing, so-
this is the
Yeah.
overall environment. So we have enough economy. Coming to the point, we are not like a town in Colorado, Trinidad town name, a success story for them for bringing marijuana. Not for us.
Right.
We have all these, a lot of shoppings, a lot of buildings. Our free parking areas are being taken to generate more revenue. I think enough. I think it is enough for a small town like us to govern, because we didn't even pave Washington Avenue since these 30 years I'm here, only patches. So we could just stop this one for the sake of the kids, and my grandkids are ready to come back. Some of them want to come to Pleasantville. They know how good the school system here is. So with all that, my respect to you all, please keep it up. You stood up for the state before, definitely. So help it out. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for that. And
you.
let me just add to anyone listening that we have made clear and are making clear through this step to our elected representatives in the Senate and the Assembly what our view of this is, and that we seek the opportunity to opt out from whatever the state law may ultimately turn out to be. as I mentioned, that's not the way it's written right now, and so folks who feel similarly, I encourage you to write to or email Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who is the majority leader in the Senate, Senator Peter Harcum, who is our local senator, Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, and our local Assemblyman Tom Avenatti. So we have a sheet that provides all the contact information for all those folks, and if we could actually get that up on the web, maybe it's already up at pleasantville-ny.gov, it would be easy for folks to fire off an email. We had a visit at the outset of this process from Sergio Serrato, who works for Senator Stewart-Cousins, and he reiterated how important it is for the elected officials in Albany to hear from local constituents to understand what they want. So we, as I reported, run the risk of having this preempted. We'd like to see that not happen, and so I encourage everybody to motivate themselves to fire off their opinion to Albany. Other speakers? All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion
Aye.
approved. So we have on our agenda tonight another public hearing, which is on the subject of the Manville Road Corridor Improvement at Civic Space. But let's go a little bit out of order and jump to the first resolution, 2019-32, which is the codification of what we just described, and act on that so that we will close that up, and those of you who are interested in that primarily will be freed from our bondage. Nicole, number 32.
Okay. Whereas introductory local law number 1 of 2019 was proposed to amend Chapter 185, Article 1, Section 3, subsection B, and to create Chapter 185, Article 9, Section 45 of the Code of the Village of Pleasantville, prohibiting the retail sale of marijuana in the Village of Pleasantville, and whereas introductory law number 1 of 2019 was referred to the Westchester County Department of Planning, and comments were received pertaining to the inclusion of certain definitions, which definitions were incorporated into the proposed local law. And whereas the Village Board has determined the adoption of the local law to be an unlisted action under SECRA, and whereas the Village Board prepared a short EAF attached hereto and has reviewed other documents relating to its determination of environmental significance under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, otherwise known as SECRA, and whereas a public hearing regarding introductory law number 1 of 2019 was held and closed on February 25th, 2019, at which time all persons wishing to be heard were able to provide comments with respect to the proposed local law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees has determined that the adoption of the introductory local law number 1 of 2019 shall not result in any significant potential adverse environmental impacts and adopts a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA. Now therefore be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby adopts introductory local law number 1 of 2019, which upon adoption becomes the same, to amend Chapter 185, Article 1, Section 3, subsection B, and create Chapter 185, Article 9, Section 45 of the Code of the Village of Pleasantville, prohibiting the retail sale of marijuana in the Village of Pleasantville.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Local law number 1 has passed. Let me report what I know to be the case, and that is that Trustee David Vinjamori and Joe Stargiotti, neither of whom able to be here tonight, would both have voted yes had they been able to be. And so the unanimity you see among the 3 of us would be shared among the 5 of us if we were all here. So,
There's that.
all right. Thank you all. Those of you who are here primarily for that, don't hesitate to leave. We won't be offended. We'll be a little offended, but we'll get over it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can we introduce Matt?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Perhaps you guys could wait just
Hold
one
that
moment.
thought.
2 seconds.
Today was a important day for the Village of Pleasantville. Today was the first day of the new tenure of our Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, Matt Trainer. As many of you know, Linda Bellafato retired in January, and we went through a comprehensive search with many applicants, and this fine person seated before us, bubble to the top. Matt comes to us after a distinguished career in North Castle, and I can report, I'm simply parroting what I read in the Examiner, Mike Shaliro, who is the supervisor of the town of North Castle, said, nobody's irreplaceable, but Matt Trainer comes pretty close. So that is one awfully nice thing to have said as you depart one place. And we are delighted to have you, Matt. If you wanted to say hello, Mary Fox Alter in the second row there, superintendent of schools. You'll get to know each other well.
Yeah, trade business cards right now.
I'm happy to report too. I think she's familiar with all the issues we have to discuss in the coming weeks and months. But members of the board, Mr. Mayor, village administrator, I'm very happy to be here. It was a very difficult decision to leave North Castle. Loved it there, loved the people there. But I've heard such great things about Pleasantville. I'm sure that path will be followed too. Today was a immensely busy day for us. I think day one. I think we hit the ground running and identified a lot of points of interest for us to look at moving forward. I'm happy to do it. I'm energetic. I'm active. I'm ready to go. And if anybody has any questions, wants to tell me anything about Parks and Rec, feel free to visit me in my office, call me, email. I'm always available to talk, and even if you just want to stop in and say hello, I'm happy to discuss. So thank you for having
Well,
me.
thank you, Matt. We are delighted to welcome you and delighted to ratify what you just said, which is you've left a good place and come to a good place too. So we're going to live up to that.
Excellent.
There's a reason it's called Pleasantville, and we try to earn that every day. So
Absolutely.
thank you, sir, and welcome.
you.
We look forward to great times.
Thank you. I'm looking
All
forward
right.
to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. And as you may have noted, a little bit in the weeds, but over the past some years, our Parks Department has been part of DPW, and Recreation has been separate. Part of the reorganization and the hiring of Matt, we're putting them back together. Obviously, there will still be plenty of coordination between the Parks component and Jeff Econom's crew at DPW, but I think everybody is pleased by the idea for Parks and Recreation to be combined again. Matt comes with lots of background, and Jeff and his crew have a zillion things to do, and I think having those two departments working closely together will be a big win as well. So, all right, good news. So, our next item on the agenda is the continuation, this being the third segment of a public hearing regarding the Manville Road corridor improvement and civic space project. Is there a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to the continuation of the public hearing. So a couple of things I wanted to report, and one of them is any of you who go to the agenda who are interested in this subject can click into agendas at pleasantville-ny.gov. It takes you to our online agenda system, which is called Novus Agenda, and you'll find a bunch of attachments, most of which have been appended to previous agendas, but there is an overview presentation that I made on January 14. There is a presentation on January 14 made by Wagner Hodgson, our landscape architects for the civic space, also January 14. There is a traffic study and several appendices attached to that by Hudson Valley Engineering Associates. There is a proposed redesign of the Memorial Plaza parking lot. There is a peer review memo of the traffic study that was provided by F.P. Clark, village consultant planners who worked with us for many years, who reviewed as a peer review the work of Hudson Valley Engineering. There are the two site plans for the proposed Manville Road improvements, environmental assessment form Part 1 and Part 2 for the project, a parking analysis from BFJ Planning, the summary of which was presented at our board meeting at our last meeting 2 weeks ago, and then an HVEA memo regarding questions about queue lengths at eastbound approach to Wheeler Avenue. Some of you who were present at the last segment of this public hearing may recall that Bernie Gordon asked a number of specific questions. We referred those back to Hudson Valley Engineering, and they responded. I forwarded that to Bernie. He responded today, asked a few more questions, and reiterated his concern that the traffic engineers analyses may not turn out to be accurate. So that is all part of the public record. In the course of that, we've also received a number of emails on various subjects. Also, just want to be clear that the purpose of these public hearings is to fulfill the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. That's a different process than the process of actually deciding exactly how to proceed with this. So we expect, pending any comment we might hear tonight, to close this public hearing. That would set up the possibility at our next meeting to provide a SECRA determination, which is what's required by law. Providing that determination does not, again, mean that we're going ahead with the project as presently constituted. A bunch of folks have proposed different kinds of changes, all of which the board will look at. And then we'll have to finalize exactly what the plans are and then decide how we might fund it and engage the public in all of the above. So just to remind folks, the project also includes a state grant, which is now $1.5 million, that is specifically for pedestrian safety improvements. And we are cautiously optimistic that there is another $250,000 grant that may come to us to assist in this project that has not yet been finalized. And then the last piece I wanted to comment, and this is part of the assessment of impact, is that depending on the final confirmation of the proposed civic space, at the moment the proposed loss of parking spaces is 43. That may get mitigated in one way or another. One of the things we're starting to look at is whether there is a means by which we could act on suggestions that have been made at various points and was highlighted by George Jacquemart in his parking study about ways in which we might actually increase the parking on Memorial Plaza. One possibility, again not certain at the moment, is to reduce the width of the median somewhat to buy a little more space, and possibly to provide angled parking similar to what we have in Wheeler Avenue on the post office side of the Memorial Plaza area. That has the potential to gain a number of parking spaces back. Again, all of that is in flux at the moment, but what I do want to report is that we are, I think, fair to say, at the point of a solid agreement for a minimum of 25 permit spaces in the new parking garage under 70 Memorial Plaza. That is the building that's proposed next to the post office and which is caused the demolition of the Rock. And we recently purchased a 18-space lot opposite Southern Table on Hobby Street, the former Pizza Hut overflow lot. That is within a 2 to 3 minute walk of the train station. So between the 25 there and the 18 in the Hobby Street lot, we have replaced in full the proposed loss of 43. I recognize that they're not in the same place, and folks will have opinions about that, but we are also working in various ways to try to see where we can gain parking in other areas. So with that preamble, I invite any comments on the public hearing. If anyone has a comment to make, please come in, let us know your name and address, and let us know what you're thinking. We have a taker.
I'm actually here about parking. Can I talk about parking?
You can, in the context of this project.
Context of the parking study?
Sure, yes. We're free.
Now, how fine are we going to
Okay.
parse this? I'm Yvonne Van Court. I live on Church Street in Pleasantville. I'm a former business owner in the village. I don't know how accurate the article was. I didn't know it was coming up, so I wasn't here, but my
Right.
information comes from the Examiner.
Okay.
And I guess I have some things that I beg you to do and things I beg you not to do.
Okay, so before you get into that, just for your benefit and anyone listening, two things to be said. One is the BFJ planning memo regarding all of this that he described is available on our website, pleasantville-ny.gov. Again, click into today's agenda and you can find it. So you can actually read it direct from the consultant. And the second thing
Okay.
is, at pctv76.org, you can click into last week, the meeting of 2 weeks ago, which was the 11th. And it's bookmarked, and you can jump right to the presentation by George Jacquemart. So I encourage you.
You're going to drag me into the 21st century.
If you want me to print it out for you, I will be happy to do that. So, but anyway, I just wanted to make clear that you can get exactly what he said And with all due respect to the Examiner and our intrepid reporter right here in the front row, it's always great to read exactly what was said.
Original source.
Okay. We're
Okay.
back, sorry.
If this study took place between 10 and 4, and he found that there was a ton of unused parking, both in the lot behind the bookstore and on Washington Avenue meters, there was no event going on, there was no screening going on at the Burns, because I can tell you, it is in full use, 100%, when they are doing matinees and midday screenings.
And we know that, and that issue is called out in his memo.
Yeah, it
Yes,
was,
I understand.
And when you first reduced the length of parking on Washington Avenue, I don't know how many years ago that was.
Right. From
I
2
thought
hours
that
to 1.
that was just a terrible idea because
Yep.
people like to come into bookstores and browse, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. Well, now I really, really, really like having the hour limit because
All right, so does that
we
mean that
get a
every terrible
ton of
idea we
people
have looks better?
every day who come in and say,
Yeah.
I tried to come and I couldn't park. I love the restaurants. I love the Burns. I'm a big supporter of both. But please don't, sacrifice the local retail businesses on the altar of those other businesses. If people just can come long-term, you're going to kill the short-term shopper, the person who's just running into the Glass Onion to pick up something, somebody who's just coming to get that book that their kid needs for school. If they can't park in town, they won't use it.
So
Can
you're
I-
arguing in favor of keeping
Keeping
the 1
the-
hour limit
yes.
for on-street?
Absolutely.
Can I just say that what
Yeah.
you're recommending goes completely along the lines of what the recommendations of the parking
Yeah.
survey
Well,
were,
you suggest
which
the
is,
possibility of extending.
Yes, he did.
To 2
If the article's
that's
correct,
true,
what I
but,
said.
okay, that's a good point. But
Yeah.
overall, the one area in which he seemed to think we were lacking is a sufficient amount of short-term parking within the village for retail use
For that reason.
specifically.
One of the things that I think could potentially help, and I know there are other villages where non-resident business owners aren't charged a higher rate for their permits, but a lower rate. I mean, we already are supporting the village through paying the real estate taxes. It's in all our leases. We're paying the real estate taxes for the village non-resident. It's sort of taxation without representation. But if you could make it possible for businesses to have permits that could pass from one shift worker to another. I know that one of the restaurants used to do that. If there's because behind the village bookstore, there are at least seven spots that are used all day by people who are employed in the village.
work there.
So,
And if we could move them into a longer-term lot, like at Rebecca, like at the village lot, if it was feasible for a business owner to make that a perk for their employees, who are oftentimes tip workers or, minimum wage workers, they can't afford they can't afford a permit. But a business person could potentially, but it would take some flexibility and a way to make meters permits.
permits.
Transferable or multiple usable.
Yeah, so
Whatever,
let me
sorry
just
to say.
respond to that, and I totally get that, and we absolutely should explore that. Two things to be said. One is the upcharge for folks who don't live here but work here to buy a permit is relatively modest, and it is cheaper to buy a permit, even at that slightly higher price, than it is to park and feed the meter every day. The problem, of course, especially for somebody who's an hourly employee, is that they may not be in a position to spend the money all up front to buy a permit for the coming year, and therefore, even though it costs more to feed the meter, it's a day-to-day expense. So that's some of the feedback we've gotten on that subject. Let me also say, and I don't say this in any way to suggest that we shouldn't try to find ways to make this all work better for all of the interest groups, but we also have an ongoing problem that ebbs and flows a little bit of abuse of permits and folks trying to get permits and use them in complicated ways. So the idea is that you get a permit and it's tied to your car, or if you have more than one car in the family, you can have other license plates on it. But when you start allowing permits to be handed around, you end up with a complicated circumstance. And
Couldn't we
yeah.
do something like that where the business owners put their workers' license plates on it, just like a family does?
Yeah, it's all possible. So
Within some number,
I mean,
3, 4,
we
whatever.
currently have,
Like, not
the
everybody
other, the
on
other
waitstaff
problem we
gets it.
have is, and you know this too, we have a circumstance where a certain number of folks would view Rebecca, for example, as too far away, even though it's really a very short walk. And so, I mean, we routinely have circumstances where we might have an available permit that we could sell somebody in Rebecca, and they say, no, and until I could have Memorial Plaza, for example, I'll wait. So at any rate, all useful feedback.
Do you think the workers would feel that way? I mean, if their alternative is running outside every hour and put money in the
Right,
meters, would they walk down from Rebecca?
I mean, some of my fellow business owners did walk down from Rebecca.
Yeah,
You know,
no, I'm not- this
we
isn't
walked from the village
everybody.
lot.
Yes.
Roy and I bought a permit for 3 days a week. Our weekend was Wednesday, Thursday.
Right.
It just strikes me as like so self-defeating to park on the street. I couldn't get my head around it.
I thank you for saying that.
No, I really, I said that to them too. The other possibility, it would seem to me, would be to be able to buy time at Memorial Plaza. If you could do the kind of, put the tag in your window, after the primary commuters have parked there, the
Right.
people who bought those permits, there's still empty spaces.
Yes.
A lot of
And
folks.
if
A
we
lot,
could,
more than we thought.
if we could devise some kind of a way that you could park there for some limited period without a permit.
I agree.
Right.
So, and we had a version of that conversation with George the other day, and the other piece of that has become increasingly apparent is a couple of us work downtown and have a easy opportunity to see the dynamics.
Yep.
Joe Stargiotti's office faces the lot, and he said this morning he counted, and at 11 a.m. there were like 18 empty spaces on the commuter side. And then at 3 p.m., boom, as soon as it becomes free, the lot fills up. So nobody's trying to get in the way of a benefit to folks as long as it actually isn't hurting anyone else. But one of the things we're struggling with now is, for example, on a Saturday, and I think it's probably true on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, a significant number of the cars in permit lots, especially the plaza, which is a prime space to park for the restaurants, the movie theater, whatever, significant number of those spaces are taken by cars that never leave.
That's true.
That are there for the whole
They're there for the weekend.
duration.
For the whole weekend.
So,
Right.
and if we can provide that benefit to folks at no harm to anyone else, happy to do it. It may be that that isn't working so well for us when we have folks circling who feel like they can't park near where they want to go. And so nobody likes to hear the idea that we might have to expand the period of time when parking fees are applied, but that might be one of the answers. Or to say no overnight parking, I don't know. We're thinking about what the options
Or if
are.
we could do a dual thing between permits and tags, that's an interesting idea.
Well, just in general, to provide more retail parking for retail. The point that you make that the 1 hour time frame though works well for the bookstore, whereas for the Burns we need something slightly longer is an important point. So that's one of the things that we need to think about too. Is what do people who are coming to shop in a store need? What do people who are going out to the restaurant need, and so on?
Well,
yeah.
if one could park for 3 hours, for example, in Memorial Plaza, if you're going out to dinner and a movie, you can do that. You
Right.
can park,
Right.
maybe 3-minute walk longer
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
what you're doing.
Well, and I think people
But
be
if you're
willing to
coming
do it,
in for
yeah.
15 minutes
To buy a
to
book.
go into a shop,
You want to be right
you
there.
want to, you
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But, as
That's a
folks,
good point.
I mean, we also commented in our conversation at the last meeting, as we have at some point in the past, that clearly we need to find a way to engage the app-enabled parking technology so that folks could, first off, pay by smartphone if they prefer and not have to carry coins, but also potentially to extend time. And in some places, you can extend time indefinitely, in which case you could keep tapping your phone and stay there all
Take
day.
them all over
In
again.
other cases, you allow an extension of one, let's say an hour parking, you might allow an extension of another hour without having to actually go to your car and feed the meter. And, one of the struggles attached to that is replacing all the meters, or, New York City style, you have a pay and display gizmo where you go and pay someplace mid-block, you come back and put the shit on your dashboard. Most of the feedback we've gotten from anecdotal comments by constituents and certainly comments from store owners is, no, I want to be able to pay right at the head of the space in a meter, as opposed to having to make the round trip to a pay and display thing. So at any rate, it all costs money, and the pay and the internet-enabled stuff costs operational money. Not only do you pay a transaction fee for every, as you well know, for every credit card charge, but you also have to pay a service fee to buy into whatever system we choose. So anyway, we're looking at all those, and Eric and Noreen, we're looking at a system that doesn't require necessarily technology at the head of the space, but could allow you to pay by space number. There are all kinds of things out there. Clearly, we need to get there, and I'm confident we will. How fast, I'm not so confident about. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thanks.
So I'm pleased to think that now that you have more time, we'll see you often.
Is it okay that I don't actually live in the village?
Please. Any other?
Pay taxes there?
Yeah, no, that's, any other speakers? Welcome, Tom.
Thanks for having me. Tom Rooney, 26 Hillview Drive, Pleasantville. I never used to attend these meetings, and for the last 3 or 4, I've been coming here because I am concerned about what goes on in this village and in the town. I've known Yvonne, well, I don't want to embarrass us, but for a real long time. And so sorry that she's no longer in the bookstore.
Yeah.
But I would have trouble finding a spot to go to her bookstore. And my friend Eric Stokel in the liquor store, he's lost more business than he would probably even be able to tell you ever since the Burns Theater moved in, because they take all the spaces, and particularly the ones in front. And they don't care that it's only a 15-minute parking meter, because the people will take a ticket. It's cheaper than doing something else. So that's not my concern here tonight. My concern is not parking, it's larger than parking. It's the direction that the village is going. I spent a lot of time this past week prior to this meeting, and I had no way of printing this out, on the computer with the Friends of Pleasantville, the Moms of Pleasantville, and the other Pleasantville websites that are on there. Listening to everything from the positiveness of the action that you're taking on the sale of marijuana, or not to have the sale of marijuana, right down to the Memorial Plaza, or to the construction that is in progress and to be in progress. There is, and I don't know if the board has not had time to go on and look through all of those posts, which are hundreds. There is quite a bit of opposition out there as far as the type of new construction that's going up, the amount of apartment buildings that are going up, and the reason for the green space in Memorial Plaza. It's not all roses. There is a large contingent out there that say no, and of course there are the people out there that are saying yes, which is why I ask again that if the town could put a resolution out for a vote for this green space in Memorial Plaza. I am not discussing the DOT part of it, I'm discussing the green space part of it. And the buildings that are going up, the building next to the post office, the rendering on the village page for that. One of the comments on the Friends of Pleasantville was, I didn't realize Pleasantville was getting their own prison because of the way that that building and that rendering look. That's a quote, it's in there, it's not my quote, it's from someone else, okay? The referendum, I understand that there's a dollar amount that has to be put on something like that before it can be put out for public vote. Can you shed the light, Eric, what that dollar amount might be? And is the village below that or above that? I mean, that's a requirement that I realize has to be there to get a referendum on a budget.
Sure, so we have to pass a bond resolution that's subject to a referendum if enough signatures can be secured. But
Is
there's
that something that can be done?
Yes.
Or will be done? Let me
Well, yeah,
rephrase.
we absolutely have to pass a bond resolution that would include this funding.
Yeah, so,
But I mean for public, such as when the school board wants to put on an addition, or
Right.
they want to do something, we always, at voting time, you flip it over and the public has a
No,
place to
local
vote.
Works a
governments are
little
not
differently.
subject to that regulation.
schools, and the school budget itself is an annual vote among registered voters in the school district. The village budget is not. So let me just unpack a couple of things. Are you finished? Because I
Well,
had a few things to say.
I'd be finished if you said, yeah, we agree with you and we're not going to go forward, but if that's not going to happen, I guess I'm done.
All right, so let me just comment in a couple of ways about stuff. And you and I have talked about this, and we will continue to, and I think maybe it's time to do it again. I do pay general attention to what's going on in the social media, and what I would say is that on the comment you made about the appearance of the building at 70 Memorial, I don't share the view that it looks like a prison. I actually think that the public amenities that are attached to this project, including what will be a beautifully landscaped walkway to take folks from Memorial Plaza down past the building to Cooley Street near Key Food and Mediterraneo, will be an extraordinary public benefit, and I can report that the landscape details got presented to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and I think the Planning Commission even commented that it exceeded their expectations. So there are some good things attached to that. Folks will have opinions about aesthetics, but let me also make clear that the village is not set up to be the arbiter of taste. We have an architectural review board, and all commercial projects go through that, but they certainly don't have the power to say, nor speaking personally do I think they should say, you have to do something in a colonial style or a Tudor style. So we have an architectural review board and a planning commission, and these projects get fed through that process. So the construction of these projects you referred to, for example, the one on the former Try and Buy site, is a 3-story building with retail on the first floor, apartments above. That project is being built as of right. That is to say, someone could have chosen to build that quite a few years ago. We haven't changed the zoning in any way. The trigger point for that project was that Try and Buy decided to close down and actually left before the end of their lease. And the owner of that property and the adjacent property that includes the Chase Bank was seeking to sell, and he sold the property to a developer who is building the building that has mostly taken shape. Again, no action on the part of this board, simply a private property owner buying a property and developing it consistent with the zoning laws that have existed for a long time. And let me also say that that project, like every project that incorporates residential, is required by our code to provide on-site parking based on a specific ratio of spaces per number of bedrooms. George Jacquemart, who made the presentation as our parking consultant last meeting, actually thinks that our required parking spaces for residential are probably on the high side. That is to say, he is very confident that the required parking that our code demands for residential properties is sufficient to provide on-site parking. So folks have commented about where will all these cars go. When they park, they will park in their own private on-site parking. The building that is proposed and the one you referred to at 70 Memorial Plaza, that is on the site of the former building on the rock next to the post office, is a 4-story building. And in that case, the village board, through about a 2-year-long process, went through a process with BFJ Planning and with quite a bit of community involvement to update the master plan for our downtown business district. And as part of that, in that one block, that is the block that includes the post office, essentially bounded by the former Photo Works, where the Wicked Chicken is proposed to be created on the one end, down Bedford Road to the parking lot adjacent to Mediterraneo, over to Manville Road, and then back up Manville to the corner where Valvoline is. That one block, we changed the zoning to allow 4 stories instead of 3, which is what has been the historic practice. Our reason for doing that is that a big chunk of that block, especially the building on the rock, had turned into a vacant, moribund parcel. And because we require on-site parking for any new construction that involves residential, there was really no way to develop it. Somebody had to come in, as you see right now, knocking down the building that had been vacant for a good long while, and taken down the rock. And at the moment, when they pass through the Planning Commission approvals, they will dig down another 2 levels for about 140 underground parking spaces. All of those spaces are accessed from the Cooley Street side. There's no driveway on Memorial Plaza, so all the ingress and egress of cars to that private parking is on the Cooley Street side. So having read some of the comments that are made on social media, I just wanted to clarify for folks that folks will have different opinions about what they view as an appropriate aesthetic, but first off, a significant amount of the proposed development and development that's in process is folks taking properties that could have been developed at quite a few points in the past and deciding to do it. And in the case of the project at 70 Memorial, a new owner who has been given sufficient economic potential for the property to pay to take down the building, the rock, and build underground parking. So I do think all of that is right-minded planning from the standpoint of the community. We are very, very clear and have made sure in our zoning code that we're past the point of folks building residences and saying, okay, village, you find a place for our residents to park. So that's all good stuff.
That all being said, regardless of, not regardless, but the type of buildings that are being built, and I'm not even discussing style, I'm discussing what's going in them.
Right.
We have, this village is small, used to be small, and now we're having hundreds of new apartments to be rented between the Toll Brothers project.
So Toll Brothers are ownership homes.
They're ownership homes,
Right.
but my point remains the same. Ownership-owned homes that will have families and children in them.
Yes.
And then all these apartments, the ones at 70, next to the post
Next
office.
to the post office, which is, I
the
think,
ones
at the
by
moment,
Try and
78
Buy,
apartments. Try and Buy is
the ones by
23.
Try and Buy,
Right.
the ones at the Mar building, the
16
the
apartments.
old and the condemned building that is more condemned now than it was
Yeah.
yesterday.
Creeping along 98 Washington across from the
And
firehouse.
not to
Yes.
mention the proposed continuation of the Try and Buy apartments to the rest of the corner in years to come. What is this going to do to the infrastructure of our town? For example, the schools. They're going to be overloaded now with a lot of kids,
All right,
possibly.
can I hold
The
that?
fire department.
Right. Can I hold the thought, continue in a moment, but on the school front, each of these projects, starting with the Toll Brothers project, are required as part of the planning process to estimate the anticipated number of school kids and benchmark that with a demographer against similar projects elsewhere in Westchester to try to come up with a number. I think the number that was predicted for the 68 townhomes at Toll Brothers was 20 some odd school kids, and I would say that based on what's happened so far, a decent number of those units are occupied. There are some school kids, they're not a lot. And it's interesting if you look at the country club, the Pleasantville Country Club as an example, those are big houses, plenty big enough to accommodate kids, but I don't know what the number is this year, but at various points, 60 some odd townhomes have generated just a handful of kids, sometimes 3, 4, 5, something like that. So, what's the reality? That the reality for the Toll Brothers project, as you know, since you live right above it, was at one point in time a thriving commercial site with on-site parking for hundreds of cars. It hasn't in quite a while been fully occupied, and it dwindled to the point that it was virtually empty. All kinds of problems on the site, all kinds of stormwater problems. But had it been repopulated as a commercial site, you would have had several hundred cars arriving at 9 a.m. and several hundred cars leaving at 5 p.m. The Toll Brothers project replaced that with a newly built project that has nowhere near the traffic impact, and certainly not the episodic rush hour traffic impact that a commercial venture would have had, provides what will almost certainly turn out to be in the range of $1.25 million contributed towards the school district tax base, and a percentage of that towards the village tax base, with what we expect to be relatively modest contributions to school kids. So, me speaking, others may have a different view. There are impacts associated with everything. That project is a net, very, very significant win for the village. And I throw out there that among the other benefits is that we have a fee associated with recreation and parks. That is to say, you build a new housing unit and you're creating new demand for our parks and recreation programs. And in the case of Toll Brothers, that generated $340,000 to our rec program, a big chunk of which we turned into a long-awaited and much-needed bathrooms at Parkway Field, so that the village of Pleasantville is no longer the unpleasant place that had portalets at its main field. So, good stuff is happening there. There are pros and cons to everything, but I just want people to realize some of those changes are happening because private property owners want to do something with their property in the current environment. That might be different from what they wanted to do some years back, but none of it's happening with this board or any of the boards and commissions who review these projects operating with blinders on. And we think a whole lot about it. I mean, I've certainly seen some chatter out there that says, what are these brain surgeons on the village board, trying to drive the village into some sort of a ditch? Well, folks will have different opinions about things, but I can tell you, you got 5 people here and quite a few people that preceded us thinking really, really hard and really thoughtfully about what you do to create a community that regular folks can live in. We, arguably past that point already, but gosh, when you take properties like the building on the Rock that, at one point in its life was a thriving contribution to the downtown economy, and it turned into nothing and essentially very, very, very little tax revenue. You look at the Lane Plumbing site, which at one point was a thriving piece of the downtown economy. Lane Plumbing closed down. That had turned into a negligible contribution to the tax base. And, not for nothing, it's worth noting that we struggled quite a bit to craft a deal with the Lane family and bought it, and now have 50 new parking spaces back there that we didn't have when I became mayor. So, we think about this every single day, and I know you disagree with me and perhaps many of us on various subjects, but God, I can tell you, speaking for myself, and I can speak for my colleagues, we're up late and up early thinking about trying to do the right thing for this village. And what I can tell you for certain is that if some of the moribund properties that exist in our downtown don't get revived, and we don't find an economic means to do so, residential property taxes will continue to rise past the point that lots of us, myself included, can afford to stay here. And so we're working hard about that.
Well, a lot of the residents now that are on, retired incomes, a lot of them have already moved out. I mean, it's not just Pleasantville, it's
No, I
all
get it.
around.
I
mean,
get
the
it.
taxes in Pleasantville are extremely high.
Right.
And you would hope that with all this new construction and income to the village that's coming in, that our taxes might actually be lowered, as it has happened in other communities. But I don't see that in the picture. But my final note is, I'm not against change, I'm just against the type of change that's happening. And I, for one, and looking at others and speaking to others and looking at what they have said on social media, just don't understand why we need all these new apartment buildings. Other businesses, but why do we need all these apartment buildings?
So let
Well,
me
can,
just...
can
let me
I
just-
respond to that?
Yeah,
quickly?
sure.
So, as Peter has pointed out, most of that has nothing to do with actions that have been taken specifically by the board.
We don't
However,
get to say no.
However, there is an overall vision for how we would like, to the extent that we can, which is limited, to guide the future of Pleasantville. And this was something that I inherited when I came on the board. The previous board had enacted the master plan, and one of the thoughts was you want a vibrant downtown. You want a vibrant business sector, in part because it helps to offset the tax burden that is, overly much on the residential sector. In part because you want a lively downtown, right? Because that's part of what makes Pleasantville, I think, relatively distinct. When you compare it with other towns in Westchester, we are still much more sort of centrally focused. We have a central business district that's much more dynamic and more interesting, and in order for that to be the case, you have to have lively businesses. And one way in which apartments contribute to that is you increase the foot traffic downtown so that you bring more customers for those businesses. I've talked to people who have lived here for much longer than I have about all the lively businesses that used to be here in the 1970s, for instance. A lot of mom and pop shops that are not here anymore. And of course, one would love to time travel and bring some of those back. Some of them sound great. We don't have that power, but it is exciting, and each of us have different tastes. So one person might be really excited about this establishment, and another person prefers this one. But we're lucky to have a vibrant downtown, and that's a big part of it. And then finally, I want to make one more comment, which is that you juxtapose the development and the civic space, and I think the goal in some ways is to have that be a little bit of a balancing piece, because the other, I would say, the most sort of distinctive and perhaps important feature of Pleasantville is the community, right? It's something that's very striking to anybody who's new here, and certainly something that's familiar to anyone who's lived here for a long time, is that we're a very tight-knit community, unusually so, I would say. And the way that happens is because of public spaces. That doesn't happen in the same way in communities where people drop off their kids at school and pick them up in a car and never meet each other, right? For those who have elementary school kids, they have to park or walk to BRS to pick up their kids,
That's a whole nother problem.
and so, well, yes, but that's how we get to know each other, right? Or we go to the pool in the summer and so on. So the civic space is really designed to serve a similar function. And I'm not saying that you have to agree that this is the right project.
No, but what I'm saying is we do have a vibrant downtown. We always have, and we have it now. And it's not to say that you can't make it better, by your opinion, with the green space, but it's kind of like I'm hearing we don't have a really vibrant or good downtown right now.
Oh no,
and
no, that's not
true.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's important to maintain that, right? We're lucky in that respect, things move. We're in the proximity of New York City, so there are forces that are greater than us that are going to influence us. But I'm saying we're lucky in that way, and the decisions that we're making are trying to maintain that while at the same time maintaining a close-knit community. And so having these public spaces where people can interact, where we can have, you know, a movie night, or we can have a winter festival, or whatever it is to bring people together, I think that that helps keep Pleasantville is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I do hope you're right, and I do hope that the movie nights and everything else that is proposed to be so great for the kids and adults in the town, I hope it works. But we've had other things such as that with other parks. It doesn't work. It's not going to happen. And only time will tell who's right and who's wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, because I don't want to see all that money spent on something it's just going to be another drain on the maintenance of the town. And the one, and my last comment, and then I will go away. Peter, you said that you can't control private property and what people, who's going to sell to what and to whom. Understandable. But you can, as you just did, pass a resolution, if that's the proper word, for the marijuana sales, not to allow a retail marijuana business to open in town. That law never existed. You just created it. So if you created another law in town and say, we've reached our saturation point on building in general, or in specific, we reached our saturation point on apartment houses, then you're not saying you can't sell that your privately owned property. You're just saying you can sell it, but you can't build an apartment building there. Or you can't open a drug retail, marijuana retail business there. Same thing.
You're totally right. We are in control of our zoning laws, and we can change them. I will say that if you change zoning that has existed for, in many cases, decades, and take away some right that a property owner had, not saying it's impossible to do, but it can get characterized as a taking. That is to say, a person owns a property that may hypothetically have a one-story building on it, but it has the legal right and has for decades had the legal right to have a three-story building on it. If you then change the zoning and say, well, we've decided that what you have is all we want you to have, you have reduced the value of that property to that property owner. So, I mean, that gets to be a complicated story, and there's a lot to be packed into it. What I will say is, it's just as you point out, we're in an environment, and Pleasantville is not alone, where there is a heightened level of interest in developing rental apartments near train stations. And that's a good thing and a problematic thing all at the same time. I would say, again, speaking from my perspective, that unlocking the potential for the building on the rock to turn into a contributor to the economic business community and also the tax base is a good thing. There may be other projects where I might feel otherwise, but we don't have the right to say no. I will say, having sat here for quite a few years, that if you write zoning that eliminates everything you think you might not want, you end up with zoning that is so tight and rigid that nothing ever happens. Some would say nothing ever happening is good, but look what happened, as you well know, having lived here a long time. I moved here 32 years ago, and I recall saying, hey, we're moving to it as a little downtown that has one of everything. Hardware store, multiple places to buy shoes, places to buy clothes. All those things are gone, having nothing to do with the action of government, just the changed retail dynamics. Happily, folks like Yvonne and Roy and now the new owner have created a great independent bookstore. We have a number of retail stores that are great pillars of our community, and a pharmacy and delis and all that kind of stuff. But places that were formerly retail have turned into restaurants. There's a lot of interest in restaurants, and that creates another kind of impact, which is to say, great to have that vibrant activity, and folks are happy to have lots of choices in their downtown. But on a Friday night, everybody wants to be in the same place at the same time. So we're struggling with all of that, for sure. So let me just throw out the last thing, which is I've spent some time in your living room, and I would be happy to do that again with whatever cast of characters you want to invite to kick it around. Open
Thank
offer.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Any other speakers? None. Enter and sign in, please.
Hi, I'm Kat Nemick. I'm from 37 Martin Avenue, and I spent the weekend with Tom on social media. Tom, nice to meet you in
Tom,
person.
me-
We were in a lot of the same chats. I'm one of those positive people. So,
positive, just on the other side.
So here's the deal with social media, and I think everybody needs to understand this. People are really afraid of voicing their opinion when it's positive and it's against the kind of let's all bring this down attitude. And that's what I saw this weekend on social media. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not going to back down. So I said what I thought. And now I'm going to say what I think to the village, because a lot of very, very intelligent people are not on social media. And they have opinions too. So just to be fair, there was a lot of negative comment about the downtown development on social media this weekend. There was also a flooding of my inbox saying, I totally agree with you. I'm not saying this publicly. These people are nuts. Just to say that. So, Tom, there's a lot of people who think differently.
Both sides.
Yeah. We moved to Pleasantville 20 years ago with 2 little kids, and I stand here now as an empty nester with plans on growing old here. After our closing, we came to see our house. There were vote yes, vote no signs all over people's lawns. There was a big to-do about an elementary school. It seemed rather dramatic to us, but whatever, we had our house. My son spent 2 years in the old BRS before it was taken down. The bathroom smelled like a combination of urine and Clorox. No auditorium, no gym to speak of, no library, no place to put coats or backpacks. I remember thinking back to those yes and no signs. I could not imagine why anyone would want to let their children in that building. People who had gorgeous new bathrooms, spotless homes, were nostalgic for a building that was no longer viable. Thankfully, the first plan was not successful, so a spectacular group of residents was formed to envision the future elementary school. And I think we can all agree that the new BRS is amazing, and it was the right decision. Change was good. The Jacob Burns Film Center was just getting its campaign going when we moved here. Saving the Rome Theater from a prospective buyer, rumored to be a mattress store, people got together and made something happen. A nonprofit, educational facility and film center was born. Back then, this town did not have restaurant choices, coffee shops, bakery options, or a variety of stores. I heard a lot about how great it used to be, but it was no longer a vibrant town. It was a little tired, to say the least. The Burns changed that. We are the envy of little towns all over Westchester. We are alive. That's a good thing. Having a busy downtown is a blessing. I had the privilege of driving across the country with my son this year. Seeing empty town after empty town was so depressing. Nothing unique, nothing personal. Walmart after Walmart. What were once beautiful town squares surrounded by little shops were empty. It made me miss home. There are days when I can walk out of my house, drop by my insurance agent, deposit some checks, get a coffee, make some prints at Sir Speedy, get some flowers for my mom, a book, some dog bones, and a bottle of wine, then loop back home. That is incredible. We are so lucky. There's a lot of chatter on social media about keeping things the way they were. I disagree. Stagnation may be safe, but the safe route did not get us that gorgeous new elementary school. coming together and thinking out of the box did. Our elected officials and many residents have jointly come up with a new vision for our downtown. We should consider its worth before writing it off. Change is scary, but change is good. The new pedestrian plan is fascinating and fantastic, in my opinion. Fewer long, angled crosswalks, sidewalks wider and more accessible, more room for walking, more room in front of stores for sidewalk sales and connection with the public. This plan involves closing off that right turn onto Manville Road from the commuter parking lot, which personally I think is great. I have seen potential accident after accident there. Is there a third lane? Isn't there a third lane? Are pedestrians crossing? I need to turn because I'm really not in a lane, but I'm making a lane. It is a mess and it is dangerous. When we moved here, we went to hear a fireman band play one night at Memorial Plaza. Picnic dinner, a blanket, coloring books for the kids. We got there and we were in a state of shock. About 10 people, over 75, sitting on lawn chairs fanning themselves from the heat in a parking lot. This was not the quaint suburban moment I pictured. I put down our blanket, and after about 20 minutes, I noticed my kids were sweating profusely. Their legs were bright red, from the blacktop burning their skin. We left. Imagine Memorial and Veterans Day celebrations where veterans are not standing in a parking lot in 90-degree heat. Hello, I just, honestly, I don't even know how anyone can think that's respectful or a good idea. Imagine those veterans having a proper celebration where they can be honored next to their memorial and then relax under trees out of the heat. Imagine walking downtown on a summer's night for ice cream and actually having a place to eat it. Imagine getting a cup of coffee and a new book, then sitting on a bench to read and relax. Imagine a place where people connect with people, people of all ages. This is not a field only for kids. It's a green for every age. It's for everyone. We need to stop dividing ourselves into different groups. We need to stop dividing ourselves into old and young, new people in Pleasantville and old people in Pleasantville, sports people and arts people, commuters and stay-at-homers. We need to stop. This country is a mess because of division. We are better than that here. We are Pleasantville. A common space is not going to kill downtown. It's going to motivate people to come downtown more. Stay a while. Spend some money. They'll pick up flowers for their friend's dinner party later on, get sandwiches because it's too beautiful to go home, interact with each other. There could be concerts, outdoor exhibits, celebrations for sports teams, and spring and winter festivals, reading groups, book clubs, exercise events, storytelling. It could be incredible. Open your minds to the possibility. And now we have Matt, so he can arrange it all.
We told him that. He knows what he's in for.
Now before, I thought there would be more people here, and there's not. But I'm going to hear from the parking people. So I want to offset the parking people. Parking. There are a lot of commuters, and I haven't forgotten you, I was a commuter. There are a lot of people who think the new apartment building at 70 what?
70 Memorial.
70 Memorial. And the active nightlife and all of the restaurants and the Burns and Starbucks, with all of this stuff, we need more parking, not less. And I totally agree. So, even though you've all said this throughout this meeting, which was really great to hear, I just want to hear yes or no after I ask these questions. Because what I find on social media is that there's a very short attention span. So let's go through these questions and see what the answers are. if I understand correctly, there will most likely be a net gain of commuting Parker spaces if there is the Village Green.
I would hesitate to say most likely, but that's our goal, and we're well towards it.
Okay, that's for a gain. Is it likely that we will stay consistent with the amount of parking spaces?
In total,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
Like-
My understanding, and then it was told today, which was interesting, about the diagonal spaces, that if the diagonal spaces can come in there will be actually a gain of metered parking spaces, if that
But
happens.
again, it's not certain that we can do that. We got a ways to go, but some preliminary sketches suggest we might gain 7, 8, possibly 9 parking spaces.
A gain of metered parking
Right.
spaces.
Yes.
Okay, so
further
that's-
to that hope that it would be, they're easier to manage because you'd have to parallel park.
Right,
It's
which
easier
would be
for the
much better,
drivers, for
much
the
better.
parkers, right?
Yeah, we should do that anyway.
Well, if we can, that's a to be D, right?
We gotta move the median possibly.
Okay, so, and again, I think you mentioned this today, but am I correct that the cars coming in and out of 70 Memorial will not be on Memorial Plaza? That will be pedestrians only, and that the entrance and exit for all cars for the new apartment building will be from Cooley Street?
You are
Correct.
correct.
That is
Am I
what's
correct
currently
in
planned.
that this is awesome? Everybody, listen to this. That Cooley Street is going directly from Bedford to Manville as a two-way new street.
Yes.
That is,
What's
that
currently
is, that
planned.
is.
Hello,
yes. So-
sold,
All right,
right?
let me just say, that just
We gotta make sure this is,
full disclosure, that entails losing some parking spaces over there, and we're grappling with that now.
where we
But
find them back.
let me also say that not only is it kind of a practical requirement for the operation of the new building, and therefore engaging the developer to assist with making it happen, but what it also does, and we've talked about this for a long, long time, is it creates another way to get around the village.
Right.
Right,
And
We can
reduces
bypass
the
them.
pressure
Right.
on Memorial Plaza.
right. I love that. Okay, I vote yes. Okay. Okay, you mentioned this too, and honestly, this to me is super brilliant. There's going to be a wide pedestrian walkway between the new building, the new apartment building, and the post office that goes between Memorial and Cooley, leads right to Key Food and right to that parking lot of 50 spaces.
Correct.
Yes. Dramatic improvement over the historic condition.
And that
And
parking
connects
lot
those two
is,
things, right?
is open for anyone after 3 PM.
The Memorial Plaza,
The 50 spot
It-
off of this
right.
new pedestrian
All
walkway.
permit spaces are open for free after 3 PM weekdays and all day
All day
Saturday and
Saturday
Sunday.
and
Now,
Sunday.
50 spots that are going to be easy to get to,
And you'll
where
now
you
have
don't
the
feel like you're
walk-
like walking
full
through the
disclosure,
Bowery.
we may change that because, we may have to tinker with that. But yes, the walkway is going to be a
That's going to
big,
be
big improvement.
a
And that's
beautiful
built,
thing.
that is built by the developer of
By
Sandy
the
Memorial. It's on his property, and there will be a durable public easement for the public to transit.
And isn't that nice for Mr. Key Food? He gave up plastic bags, but he gets a really great walkway right to his store. So
He
that is
does?
a
and
win-win.
70 apartments.
And-
Right, and 70 apartments.
And-
Okay, Mr. Key Food, I am so happy for
And
you.
just to report, I don't know if you noticed that Key Food is soon to open the new central entrance on the
Right.
building that they built, and they have framed out the addition they're putting on the back, and this obviously has to occur in steps, but he's well along with a project that will ultimately revamp the entire inside of
All
the
Key
store.
Food
So
is going to be a new,
good
Things are
stuff
looking
is
good-
happening
Things are looking
there.
good in Pleasant
gonna be
Hill.
Thumbs
great.
up for Mr. Key Food there. He took a few hits.
you did take.
I gave him a few hits, so I
You- you deli-
apologize.
You delivered
You
to
took it like a
You
man.
gave him a couple of them.
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I don't back down. So let me understand one more thing. I understand people don't want to walk a whole 4 minutes to get from their parking space to the train station, but my house was sold under the pretense that it was literally the best house for a commuter, and it takes me, 7.5 minutes. So
That's a slow walk.
you know,
You could go.
I have short legs. Okay, so now the underground parking, 25 plus potential spaces or definitely 25 spaces?
I think it's fair to say, we haven't signed on the dotted
Right,
line,
so
but it
that's
seems pretty clear that we will end up with at least 25 spaces for permit use in this new underground parking garage.
25 underground parking spaces where people come home during the winter after a snowstorm and don't need to get snow off of their car.
That
Correct.
is the case.
They
Win,
can
win,
walk by the
win.
park,
Ding,
right?
ding, ding. If I understand, okay. So I've made my point, I think. It seems like parking actually isn't an issue. It seems like with this new green space, there's a good chance we might end up with more parking and a pretty solid assessment that we will at least end up with the same amount of parking. Is that right?
I would agree with that. And the way that one of the ways I put it too is that there's so much pressure being put on parking as a result of this process that, you know, we're concerned with parking anyway, but we've been on hyper alert about parking for months now. And so one of the things that's happening too is we're reevaluating the use of parking in the village. And we're seeing things like, for example, that because there's nothing regulating parking in Memorial parking lot in the commuter spaces after 3 p.m. and those all fill up, that sometimes it's people who are staying there for the weekend, and that means that we're not getting as much use for restaurants, for
Right.
the post office, for as we could. So I think we're going to improve the use of the parking spaces that we have and the general efficiency of parking throughout the village as a result of this process.
Just to add to that too, we're also looking at the subjective quality of parking, right? So parking has always, I think, before this process, been kind of like a standard thing. It's been a quantitative measure, less than a qualitative one. So now we're looking at the value of a parking spot, a commuter parking spot that might be that 4-minute walk away. You know, there may be adjustments that we can make on how those permits are done, which encourages the people that don't mind that walk to opening up other parking alternatives that are just a little bit further out. Right, so a person who's used to stepping off the train, wiping off the snow, and getting in their car, maybe they don't mind the walk, they're willing to use other alternatives that, as Nicole was mentioning, we've been looking at creatively finding other ways to handle that overflow for the folks that are willing to do it.
Right.
So it's also created this sort of subjective look at parking as well as the qualitative.
Well, and there are clearly some people who are parking for free and commuting who don't mind a little bit of a
Right, which
walk.
we're also looking
So
at.
that's another thing that we're
Right.
looking at.
So and
Yeah.
let me just
Interesting.
throw into that mix that, you know, we tend to call it the commuter lot, but a significant number of the permits we have are not commuters. They're folks that live here and work or work here. So their dynamics are different than a commuter dynamic. So, and we're also finding, and happily with the revival of properties on Marble Avenue, the parking dynamics have changed. We got some folks that are interested in parking further down the road. Tudor Time's a good example of a place that has a need for parking permits, and the folks that work at Tudor Time don't need to be in Memorial Plaza. They're perfectly happy to be, say, in the new Hobby Street lot or even
Pizza Hut,
further
yeah.
down on Hopper Street. So
That's-
I
that's
say
other
that just to
parking that
say,
we acquired, right? The Pizza Hut thing.
I hope, although I somewhat doubt I'll be able to free myself of it, that when I cease to be mayor, I will not ever think about parking again in my life.
Here, here.
But the dynamics of parking are pretty darn complicated, and it's not the way it might have been a few decades ago, where a very high percentage of those cars were commuters to the city. Still plenty. That's still a very important constituency, and we are totally focused on that. But
Not-
we have some flexibility.
Not only them,
Yeah.
that's right.
So, just a general statement that my husband thought I should take out of my little presentation
That you're now going to put back in.
that I'm putting in because he's not here is, you know,
Shall we
I
duck?
get it that people commute to the city and they drive, and I get it that there are a lot of cars in Pleasantville, but there's a lot more cars in Pleasantville than even when I moved in 20 years ago.
Right.
And the reason we bought our house, we drew a circle around the schools, the station, and the library, and the grocery store. And I'm from Queens, and my goal, and I lived in New York, and I lived in Philadelphia. So I cried on the drive to Pleasantville, because it was, you
The end
know,
of life
so
as you knew it.
suburban.
Yeah.
And my goal was to be able to have sidewalks, have kids trick or treat on sidewalks, and to be able to, my kids to be able to walk any place they
Where
needed
they
to go.
needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it was both positive in that they did and negative that they never got driver's license because they
They
didn't
walked
need
everywhere.
them because they walked everywhere.
Right.
So I think that for all the people who want to go back to the great old days of the way it was, maybe we should start to think about getting out of our cars a little bit and maybe walking a little bit more. I walk another little boy to school every day now, and I cannot believe the line of cars to
Yeah.
drop their kids off. That was not like that 15 years ago, and my guess is it wasn't like that 25 and 35 and 45. So I think that we all rely on our cars a little too much, and maybe we could skip out on our gym memberships and keep track on our Fitbits of our miles just walking down to the store and such, and that would take care of some of the congestion too, says the woman who drove to the diner last night. So in closing, this town has an amazing opportunity, and it saddens me to think people are aggressively trying to stop it. There's nothing to be divided about, in my opinion. This is a good thing. There is some threatening of lawsuits and badgering and negativity, and it's really unbecoming. The people who really support this are kind of afraid to speak out. We have an opportunity for a community green, a place where we can respect our veterans, a place for intergenerational community experiences, a place for family ice creams and being outside, a place we need. We need to be kinder. We need to be less divided. We need a place to come together. We need to come together and breathe. So thank you for all of you've done. I'm sorry for the aggression that's thrown at you. You all do a lot of hard work, not just here on Monday nights, but throughout the whole week. And if people got off Facebook and came to meetings a little bit more, you wouldn't need votes, special votes. You wouldn't need anything like that because people would be here expressing themselves. So I hope you understand that some people are afraid to speak out. They did live through yes and no, and it wasn't pretty. And there's a lot of people who really are looking forward to this Village Green. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kat.
Thanks.
And thanks a lot for your comment about Facebook as well. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Yvonne. Thanks to Tom. Thanks to everybody who came and came to the previous meetings. Last week was February break, and I have not looked at Facebook much in the past week because I had my two kids. And honestly, there are times when I just can't handle looking at Facebook because it's going to stress me out too much. And you know, it's fine for people to air their feelings in these forums, but I would encourage anybody who has an opinion to contact us directly, because we're in a position right now where we feel like we have to hire somebody to keep track of everything that's going on Facebook so that we can respond to things. And often, you know, comments that are made without, you know, sometimes making any effort to sort of inform themselves a little bit. But even if you're uninformed, that's okay. It would be easier, though, if people were to reach out to us directly, even if they can't attend a meeting, if they could in some way engage with us directly, than to have this sort of chatter floating out in the ether.
Just one more comment, if I may.
Sure.
Kathy? Kat, I'd like you to know that my children, we walk to school uphill both ways in the snow every day.
In the dark.
Excellent.
All right? So I just want to start off that way. Okay.
You've won us over already.
Just a couple points I'd like to clear up. I'm glad to hear that you got the Bedford Road School built. But the real reason the Bedford Road School got built is because structurally it was cheaper to knock it down than it was to rebuild it. And that's the bottom line on the Bedford Road School. And it's a great school, and my kids went there. The other part about being, I'll put it a little more bluntly, the young people and the old people in the town, okay? The reason I'm an old person in the town is because we went through all these changes up to this point. It's not about being against change. It's about spending $2.5 million for something that's not possibly necessary when there's so many other things in this town that could benefit by the use of that money. And that being said, that is where I'm going to leave it. It's not against the town not growing or having a beautiful green space. Whether people use it or not, it's not the point. It's $2.5 million of my money, your money, the taxpayers' money, that could be better spent somewhere else, beautifying the town, which is on the parks and the green spaces that already do exist. We have these green spaces. Do you see kids and families there now drinking coffee, watching their kids running around? Not likely. But that being said, I just wanted to make that point. It's not like it's you and it's us. It's us in the whole town. And it's our money, our tax money, everybody's tax money. And I'd like to see it be put to a good use. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Any other speakers?
Ladies.
Okay. So let me.
Don't be
All
shy.
right.
Come on up.
You've been coaxed into it.
So my name is Sarah McPhee. I live at 205 Manville Road. And honestly, I haven't done a lot of research on the green space. I've heard about it. I've heard people talk about it a little bit. So because I haven't done my research, I don't say I'm for or against it. My one question would be, going off of what I think Tom, is that his name, just
Yes.
said, what about the pool? I think that that is an existing space that is used by families a lot and could use a huge overhaul, needs a lot of improvement. I think beginning of last year it was shut down for an issue that is an ongoing issue. So I guess that's just my only question is there are existing spaces that need some attention. My point, one thing is the pool. So
Certainly.
So the story with the pool, first thing related but unrelated, is Matt Trainer, who we have just anointed as our new Parks and Rec superintendent.
He's now in his car driving somewhere else.
is a very knowledgeable pool guy, which is a great asset. He, as you perhaps know, the town of Newcastle, on rather short notice, took over what had been a private pool and leased it, and then ultimately bought it. As a result, Matt is a very knowledgeable guy about pools, and we're optimistic that that will help. We have the likelihood of having to spend quite a bit of money on the infrastructure of the pool, painfully not stuff that improves creature comforts, just
don't really
makes the
see
thing
it,
work
but
better.
how it works.
What that dollar figure is not clear. We had one consultant who said it was $1 million. That's not crystal clear exactly what it is, but I can tell you that we've heard loud and clear from a bunch of folks, you among them, that the pool is important. And I personally share that view. I have also heard from a bunch of folks that say it's a 2.5-month program, it's not justified, shut it down, fill it in, make a
Fill it in,
field.
make a field.
So, of course, God knows what that would cost to fill it in and make a field. One of the reasons that we have arrived at this point of talking about this Manville Road improvement and the civic space is, first off, we got $1.5 million grant for the Manville Road pedestrian improvements, and that includes closing the slip lane. So suddenly the end of Memorial Plaza ends up as a dead end because of closing the slip lane, which was planned, and had always anticipated a civic space of some kind there, larger or smaller. At the same time, we're retiring a certain amount of debt. We have relatively low bond rates. We have new tax ratables. And so we have this series of opportunities that have come together that really, I can report in all my many years on the board, for the first time makes it possible even to imagine this. We've had some of these plans stabled in the corner, ready to go for 7, 8, 9 years and no way to do it. So here's what I would say. We can undertake what we have proposed with relatively little impact on the overall tax rate. And the pool is definitely on our radar screen, and we're going to have to do something about it. I am not one who is willing to see it be turned into landfill and a field. There's no doubt, as Tom rightly points out, that if we don't spend money on this, we have more money to spend on something else. And there's a long list of
plenty
things
of
that
things, right.
we have on our own list and that various groups have on their list. I would say that it's been a long time, a very, very long time, since we invested a significant amount of money in some significant civic space in the downtown. And it feels like here's our chance. So I don't think it's an if-then statement about the pool. Let me also say, as I mentioned earlier, the fee in lieu of recreation space, the fees that are required for every new residential unit, is a nice, significant piece of revenue from these new developments directly to our rec programs.
Which
Just-
the pool revenue, pool
Is included.
renovations can come from.
Yeah.
Because I was also wondering, not just improving like the things we can't see about the pool, but even maybe, I don't know how, increasing green space around there, around the pool for
Yeah.
people to sit,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
opposed to, again, to Kat's point, sitting on cement when
Yes.
you're at the pool.
Not so
Yeah.
good.
Or
Yeah, I
just
agree.
places to have a chair, so when you get there, you have somewhere to at least sit. So
Yeah.
as an extension to just, making the pool function better, just the green space, even the basketball courts are great. I
Yeah.
know that those get used a lot
Yep.
during the summer as well.
So
Yeah, I had
Nicer weather.
had a conversation with Will Collins about maybe if there's a way to create an easier passage between the basketball courts and the pool. If you have specific ideas, it would be a good idea for you to send one of us an email. I think now with Matt taking over
Yeah.
Rex and
It's great,
Park,
It's a good time.
there's
Yeah,
a
really
real
good.
window of opportunity for improving the pool.
He's going to have
and
a
I
bunch
think-
of ideas on
Yeah,
his
that's
own. It'd be
great.
great to marinate all this.
So as a brief shout out, we're soon into the pool pass sales period, and we, after some years running when we had declining enrollment, I think that's stabilized and started to edge back. We have invested in some renovations of the pool house and invested in improvements in the snack bar. Had much better food, although much more expensive food, and those two things are goals that are in conflict, but I think we hear you.
And
Okay, thank you.
we're
Okay.
aware of the pool.
Yeah.
We know we need.
All right, so
Thanks for the question.
promote signups for the pool.
Right.
I just want to bring up one point because I think Tom and Sarah had really good points. When I was PTA president, I had to deal with not a lot of funds and a lot of different people who wanted that money. And the only way I could sleep at night was to come up with a rule that it had to benefit the school. It had to benefit all of the kids in the school. So I couldn't have an 8th grade parent coming to me and saying, I want to do this specific thing for only 8th grade kids, because the money was coming from all of the grades. And I find that you guys are in a difficult situation a lot of the time because there's pool people and there's field people and there's parking lot people, and everybody wants what they need and they want it when they need it. 7 years ago, I would have wanted a new pool. Now, I couldn't care less if there's a new pool. That's really selfish, but it's really true. And when Tom brings up that people don't just go to Soldiers and Sailors, well, people do, but they're people with little kids or people who have kids playing soccer or baseball. So when we look at this map behind you, it's really fascinating that the purple dots are the parks and stuff and the gathering places. And if you look at that map, there's no purple in the center of town. And wouldn't that be amazing to get a little purple flag in the center of town that benefits not one group or another? That's the whole point, is that purple dot in the center of town is for everyone. And to me, that's where you should spend your money first, for everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Are there any other speakers? So here's the report. We're going to close the public hearing. We've extended it, and I think everyone's had a chance to speak, and there isn't too much more to add to this public hearing, which is about fulfilling the terms of the State Environmental Quality Review Act and discussing impacts. So we're going to close the public hearing, assuming we vote for it, which I'm pretty confident we will. That doesn't mean the discussion is over. We are actively ingesting all that's been said and all that continues to be said. I can tell you I've spent quite a few hours in the last few weeks talking to folks on all sides of the issue, and we're really trying to see how that all could coalesce into a project that lots of people support. So is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Before I second it, would we be comfortable closing it without David and Joe here?
Yeah, both of them knew that that was the intention, and in fact, if you recall, last week, Joe was
And
kind of
Joe
motivating in favor of closing it last time.
Okay, I
so,
just wanted
yeah.
to check. that they
Again,
would be-
it's not the end of the discussion, it's the end of the State Environmental Quality Review Act process. So,
Okay, second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you all, and,
Thanks for
and I really
coming.
do appreciate everyone who came and spoke.
Yeah, so do I.
And I invite you to listen to our dry as dust resolutions.
Or not, as the case may be.
Number 33,
Take a second
Steve.
break, or no? We're not gonna do
No, let's,
No, let's plow.
yeah, let's plow.
that? We're gonna probably do another.
Number 33.
Number 33, yes, sir. Number 33,
I'll see you.
whereas New York General Municipal Law, Article 5-G, Section 119-O, Section 119-O, I don't know why it gets there twice, but it is, empowers municipal corporations defined in Article 5-G, Section 119-N, to include school districts, boards of cooperative educational services, counties, cities, towns, and villages, and districts, to enter into, amend, cancel, and terminate agreements for the performance among themselves or one for the other of their respective functions, powers, duties on a cooperative or contract basis. And whereas the Village of Pleasantville wishes to invest portions of its available investment funds in cooperation with other corporations and/or districts pursuant to the NY Class Municipal Cooperation Agreement amended and restated, I think that's supposed to say, guys? It says amended and restarted. Amended and restated as of February 26, 2019. Whereas the Village of Pleasantville wishes to assure the safety and liquidity of its funds, resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to execute and deliver the New York Class Municipal Cooperation Agreement amended and restated as of February 26, 2019, in the name of and on behalf of the Village of Pleasantville. And if I remember right, the NY Class, and we have additional information attached here on the sheet, it's the New York Cooperative Liquidity Assurance Security
New York
System,
Cooperative
something.
Liquid
There we
Asset
go.
Security
Liquid Asset
System.
Security System.
Is there a second?
Second.
So, as Steve has just reported, it's a local government investment pool that invests in high-grade investments and is likely to produce better returns than we're currently getting in bank deposits.
Yeah, we're just getting under 1%, and NICLAS we're expected to get 2.25.
2.2, right. Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved.
Did you aye?
Aye, yes, absolutely.
It's important that we all aye tonight.
I know.
Shall
nay,
I,
that's
Nicole?
Okay.
You guys are
You can't-
heavy lifting
you
here.
can't do it.
No, I can.
I've
I
got
just don't.
34.
Yeah.
Resolved, he's graduated. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the donation from Pleasantville Community Television, PCTV, in the amount of $5,000 towards the renovation project of the village facility located at 2 Lake Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
As we mentioned in the past, PCTV has moved to the old pump house at 2 Lake Street. We're in the midst of renovating it with extraordinary planning and assistance from Jeff Econom in Public Works and the good offices of local architect Eric Brotherton. PCTV is contributing $5,000 towards this venture. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved.
Aye.
35.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes from the village board meeting on February 11th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or corrections?
No.
No.
Just to repeat, that February 11th meeting involved a presentation by George Jacquemart of BFJ Planners regarding downtown parking, and if you are interested, you can see that at pctv76.org. Look up the February 11th meeting. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 36. That's you,
isn't it?
Steve.
No, I just did the minutes.
Oh, you did?
But I'll do third.
No,
did
Nicole
you?
then.
No, I did the minutes. Oh, no, you did the, and I'm,
I did the minutes.
okay.
Who did the
sorry.
minutes?
All right, I'm asleep here. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the appointment of Aldo Conte to motor equipment operator, job code 0427, CSEB, wage schedule B, step 1, annual salary of $60,916, effective February 25th, 2019. Said appointment is subject to a probationary period of not less than 12 weeks to a maximum of 52 weeks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Filling an empty
Very
slot.
important role,
Yes, we
right?
have 2 empty slots, one from a retirement and one from somebody who left,
I departed. Right.
which will ultimately open up to position in parks, which one we'll get to in another resolution.
Great. Congratulations, Aldo. We welcome you.
Welcome
All in
aboard.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved.
Aye.
37, Nicole.
No.
You're really
just
confusing
trying to
me
mess you
now.
guys
Resolved
up.
that the check register dated February 25th, 2019, covering check numbers 92464 to 92568, is hereby approved as listed below from the general fund, the water fund, the capital fund, the refuse fund, and the trust fund for a total of $301,979.64.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is an error in the general fund number, an extra digit. It says we're spending
Yes, you're right.
20,
2,
No.
3, 4, 7, I think there's no comma.
Just missing the comma.
It's just
Yeah.
a comma.
so, oh, I see, it's 234,717,
234,717.
just missing a comma.
Yep.
All right. Any comments or questions on the check register?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 38, I'll let you determine whose job it is.
I think we can match. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the appointment of Brendan Duane to Village of Pleasantville Parks Department as labor, job code 0425, CSEB wage schedule B, step 1, annual salary of $54,580, effective March 4th, 2019. Said appointment is subject to a probationary period of no less than 12 weeks to a maximum of 52 weeks.
Second.
As reported, filling an empty slot. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Welcome, Brendan.
Welcome aboard.
That would be 2 Brendans in parks.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to have
They're
Brendan
Slightly different spelling.
1 and Brendan
Park
2? Or
Yep.
Yep. Number 39.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby designates the following location as a third polling place for the village election on March 19th, 2019, from 7 to 9 a.m., and that is at the Daniel P. Hayes Hose Firehouse. The address is 134 Bedford Road, Pleasantville, New York, 10570. That is up in the Old Village.
Is there a second?
0 p.m.
Second.
Yeah,
7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
correct. That would be a very short election.
That
Very
would-
short.
Huh.
And
So just to be clear, there is no seat on the village board up for election this year. The only seat up for election is the village justice.
Correct.
And it says third polling place. What are the other two?
Last time, we had the village rec department at 48
Okay.
Marble, and then also Emmanuel Lutheran Church
Okay.
over on Manville. We didn't have the official verification from the fire department, so they approved it last week.
Okay,
At that board meeting, the election board is already
cool.
kind of aware, but we then need to go have it public on board resolution.
Got it.
All right.
Very good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Number 40.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves graduate students Lily McMillan and Esther Balogun as unpaid social media interns for the Village Board of Trustees effective February 26, 2019 through May 13th.
Got a typo in the
Yep.
date.
Oh, right.
Second.
Our colleague on the board, David
2019.
Vinjamori, teaches a marketing course at in the NYU grad
NYU.
school, and he has fortunately sent us these 2 people as unpaid social media interns to assist us.
To read all the angry comments on Facebook.
Right, well, which
So
is
we-
awesome. We really need that help. So thank you very much, David, and
Yeah.
to these 2 folks coming aboard.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 41.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following new hire appointment effective February 26th, 2019. Susan Cohen as an intermediate clerk, part-time available, job code 0187 for $20 an hour in the Village Justice Court.
Is there a second?
Second.
Budgeted part-time?
Yes, and well,
very infrequent. That's why it's a part-time available.
Uh-huh. As
She'll
available.
fill in as
needed.
necessary, no set hours.
Gives us a little backup. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Any new business?
Nope.
Okay, I just had a couple of announcements to make,
have
and
one as well.
one of them, now that we're at the far end of a long meeting, Pleasantville Music Festival planning is going on apace. It is on Saturday, July 13. Tickets are available now. You can get information at pleasantvillemusicfestival.com. As I mentioned, a bunch of people had asked me about the removal of the rock next to the post office. That project at the moment is a demolition permit that allows the owner to take down the building, long gone already, and bring the rock down to grade. They are before the Planning Commission right now for a building that will include about 140 underground parking spaces. That part of it will wait for approval from the Planning Commission. And then further to that, folks have also asked me if progress at Key Food. If you take a look, as I mentioned earlier, a new front entrance has been built. They have framed out an addition on the back, and quite a bit of work going on that will ultimately result in renovating the interior of the store. As just mentioned in our resolutions, there's a village election on March 19th. The sole office up for grabs is the village justice. And then the last thing is the folks from Films on Purpose, a Pleasantville not-for-profit, will be showing on March 7th at the Presbyterian Church a movie called Beacon to the Border, which was made by a local resident, Andrea Garbarini, with the assistance of actually some Pleasantville young people. There is a reception at 6, and I think the movie starts at 7 at the Presbyterian Church.
I have a quick one. So on Sunday, there was the annual sort of get-together for the Pleasantville Community Garden. And Devin Juros, who sort of grew this idea from a thing he determined in his living room after hearing about hunger in Westchester, turned it into an amazing thing that this community, I think, is very happy to have and very proud of. And I just wanted to give a little bit of the background of what that looks like. So Devin started the Pleasantville Community Garden with obviously support from his parents in 2012 when he was 11. Since then, the Pleasantville Community Garden has donated 61,000 pounds of fresh produce to local community food banks, Neighbors Link, and a bunch of other programs. If you don't know how that works, it's 31.5 tons of fresh produce. So this little guy who started as an 11-year-old, my son Sam is in his grade, saw a show at one point about hunger in Westchester. People that are among us and drive around us, 20% of the folks in Westchester have food security concerns, and we're in a very affluent area, and it's not something that one would necessarily think about a lot. He thought about it a lot, and the Juros family and Devin really stepped up to the plate and created a thing that also has, through Sunday, benefited from the volunteer efforts of over 400 volunteers from the village of Pleasantville over those years. And that's, we were talking earlier a little bit about what makes this town special. That's definitely one of them, in my opinion. So I know it's a long meeting and it's a late night, but I wanted to call that out because 31 tons of vegetables for people who need it by 400 volunteers. And these are guys weeding and planting and harvesting and driving. I'm a veggie driver. That's my lot in this whole thing, is I help drive this stuff around. I think that's extraordinary.
The whole
I'll
thing
leave
is
it there.
extraordinary. Devin's extraordinary.
Thank you to everyone.
One feels a little
Yeah, what's the
sheepish
word?
that he's going to go to college, and of
Yes.
course we want that for him. But really, come on,
Well,
you
there's
can't
good,
go.
good plans afoot to leave this in good hands.
All right, then-
Devin, hats off to the Juros family, Devin in
That
particular,
is
but
for
you guys,
sure.
You embody everything that this town's about.
That is for sure. So then lastly, we met a little earlier in work session with Peter Rogov and Petro Zorgman and Ben Sarabin, the brain trust behind Pleasantville Day. Saturday, May 18, be there or be square. Anything further?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion to go into executive session on matters of personnel?
We do have a vote on that, right?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all,
Thank you.
much appreciated. And again, further commentary one way or another on the ongoing discussion about our civic space and Manville Road improvements. We encourage you to get in
Please
touch
let
with
us
us. either directly. Our email addresses can be found at pleasantville-ny.gov. Good night. See you in, what? I should
2
open
weeks,
the calendar.
right?
No, it's more than
No,
2
it's 3.
weeks, right?
Might be 3.
It is March 11th, Monday, March 11th. That's our next meeting. See you then.